Hey everyone, and welcome back. Hope you had a great weekend out there. Now today we're going to be looking at new capability. While it's available to use, it's still flagged as a beta feature, and there will be some changes obviously, but this will give you a really good insight into where ARIA Automation is going around the multi-cloud support. Now it already does a great job, a lot of resources out of the box and the main resources that a lot of organizations use, but one of the biggest questions I get asked is how do I make use of a service day one when a cloud provider releases it? How can I start testing it and validating it and see if it's any use for me? One of our usual go-tos was, well, you could use Terraform if you needed to, or something else, right? Because we could execute a lot of capability, and obviously ARIA executes and runs Terraform natively, bringing in that enterprise governance and control and automation plane, and wrapping it around that open source capability. Now, obviously, the licensing change recently from Terraform has meant that there's now restrictions on how you can use it and run it and all the rest of it. And from my understanding, I think ARIA is now capped. It used to be able to choose and install your own Terraform versions and all the rest of it. Now it can't run any higher than, I think it's 5.5 or something like that, whichever license that still is capable under the open source model. But obviously anything newer can't be used in a commercial sense without paying for it, basically. That's now no longer a nice option or a neat option. But luckily, there's capability that has been in play for a lot longer, and this capability has been there for a lot longer, and that's IDEM. So I did a video actually quite a while ago around Project IDEM. Now, IDEM is very similar to Terraform in a lot of ways, except its infrastructure is data. So it uses the REST data structure within the native cloud construct to be your code, essentially. So you're not actually writing code. You're basically storing data as a desired state. Now, what's really cool about this is obviously there was ARIA guardrails, which was using IDEM to be able to create landing zones and your VPCs and all that sort of stuff that were in your cloud providers. But now it's actually built in, or going to be built in, to the design canvas and what it can manage and whatnot. So this is what's ARIA is calling plugin based framework. So this framework is essentially just using IDEM under the hood. But what it gives you is it has the ability, as of today, and the capability that's there is the ability to be able to deploy, manage, maintain 250,000 cloud resources that are out there. Right. So there's only a couple that are actually in there as of today. And what's great too is this is completely decoupled from ARIA, which means that you can update these without actually updating ARIA as well. And it gives you that very much that native feel, but bringing it all back into that enterprise governance and management, being able to bring in the lifecycle capabilities, being able to bring in the lease times, the costings, being able to do day two actions against these. So it really expands that capability. Now, let's actually dive in and have a little bit of a play with what's there today, just to give you an idea. All right, so I've got a blank canvas here within ARIA Automation, and you might have noticed these allocation helpers. So these allocation helpers are actually part of that new plugin architecture, or plugin framework. Helps you do placement of resourcing. We'll just ignore those just for a little bit, but we'll use them. But if we move down, we'll go to AWS. Anything that has two versions, one being a classic and one being not, you can actually see the type there. It says item.aws.s3 bucket. So if we just have a look here, and what we'll actually do, we'll use a machine because this might do a bit. So you can see here we've got classic instance, and then we've got the new instance, which is the item instance. If we drag these over, so we've got two. And if we go to this one, we have a look at the properties that are available for, this is the classic version, just to give you an idea. So we've got account, Active Directory, address, auto scale, VPC ID, cloud config, cloud, a few things there. Networks, OS type, region, tag, zones. So, there's a number of them there. but they're not all of them. So if you went into the API of AWS, or you wanted to look at the actual resource and the properties that you can have on them, there's a lot more than that. But if I have a look at this one, which is grabbing the properties basically off the object itself, you can see now we've actually got the real properties for the object within the cloud provider, and all of them, right? They're not obfuscated. So you can see we've got bootstrap, we've got client token count, CPU credits, CPU core counts, we've got elastic GPUs, group names, hibernation enabled, host IDs, endpoints, like kernel IDs, license ARNs, market type, max price, owner ID, product IP address. Like, you've got all these different things that aren't actually there, spot instance type, all those things, right? So you can start actually using the native cloud capabilities in their full-fledged form, rather than having it abstracted a bit, right? So it gives you that flexibility, but this is updated separate from ARIA Automation itself, right? And that's really cool. We've got that, and that also goes for, and if we go down here, before you would have noticed with GCP there was always a very limited number, and you can see we had bucket there, we had instance, we had disk. I think that was really it. Yeah, it was. So you can see now we've got actually a whole bunch of new ones, and you can see that they're all item-based GPC service account, item-based bucket, item-based instance, item-based backend service, item-based disk, firewall, right? So we can start dragging these things out, and and you can see obviously the type item.gcp.compute.firewall, and again we've got all the properties for those particular things. So it will allow this ARIA as a platform to be able to bring in more capability quicker to your organization and give you that full-fledged cloud experience with all that awesome governance and control around it as well, which I think is pretty cool. Now, what we'll do is let's just have a little bit of a play here. We'll remove all these. Let's just do something simple because I don't want this video to go forever, and I don't know why it's doing that. Let's do this, and now let's actually use one of these allocation helpers or compute helpers. So because there is a lot of properties and other things here, I could sit here and write out the region and account IDs and the image IDs and all these things, and maybe I'm going to have different groupings, but I want to make it easier for myself. So I can actually come into here and have a look at the properties and the account types that we've got here. So we can actually see that the account placement region, they're all computed, so I don't need to touch them, but I do want to go into here and I do want to set some constraints, right? So the constraint will be and I'll choose one which will just be let's do platform AWS, right? And then we might do environment dev. Cool. Let's go on that. Now I'm going to attach that straight here, right? So all of a sudden you can see that it's automatically filled in the region IDs, the account IDs, the availability zones, and all the rest. So you can still do intelligent placement based on the constraint tags that I've put into the allocation capability. Now you can go in here and put a bit more in there if you want to, and you can see that I've got one of those allocations there. Now we can test this, see if it works. All right, that's all successful. And now I go, okay, well, what about the image? I haven't really told it the image. Let's put image helper here, right? I can then attach it. Attach it to there. You can see it automatically add the image ID. I can then choose the image that I want to use. So again, it's going to use those image types that we've created. Choose my image type, and then I've attached it to there. So that's now, doing my images. I can actually have a look here and still do, I can put the images, but it has all these things in there as well. So I could just use that one instead of both those. We can see I've got two constraints. And then we can also have flavor, right? So what size do I want this particular machine to be? So within here, you can have a look at the flavors. I'll do a small as an example there. And that's then filling in all that capability there. I have a name. Let's just call this item test VM for now. There is a name helper there too, naming helper. So to do the custom naming as well. And the idea with this is I could then go, I might have two sets of groups of these, but I can reuse these across other resources, especially around allocation and naming and other things like that. So I could have them pointing to more than one thing. I could actually bring this one over here and I could do the same thing, attach this one to these to be able to bring them all the same. So I don't need to then go and write that again. I guess you can say I can actually have them mapping to that helper as well. And again, set a name. I'll just do item tests VM2, an example. So that's just I guess a very, very quick overview of it. But if I actually go back to here, we'll see a little bit more. So this is one that I prepared earlier. We can actually see that I've got an S3 bucket. I've got a EC2 volume. I've got my my VM there. I've got my allocation helper, so you can see the allocation helper is actually going to all three of those. It's going to, give the constraints dev and region A and Z, account type AWS. Example, we've got our allocation image and our allocation flavor network actually for that one. So which network am I putting it into? And I can do deploy to that. We'll do item test deploy. Next. And away it goes. And then it's actually going to do the deployment. Now, save me waiting for this to go through. I actually already deployed one previously. So I'll have a look at this one. Oh. And we can see that it's deployed these successfully. We've got our S3 bucket. You can get all the information. We've got our volume there. They've all been placed properly. We've got our VM and our obviously our instance VM and our allocation helpers, which have gone through. They've been computed from the constraints that we put in and then applied. So look, this is just a very simple example of being able to use the plugin based framework that's available, and you can actually see up there that allocation helpers and newly designed resources are beta features and subject to change. But it gives you an idea of how ARIA is going to be able to map to all these cloud capabilities because it's using underneath the IDEM capability, which is very, very cool. And that sort of solves all the problems of, how do I start using and consuming these? How do I make sure that the resources are updated outside of my ARIA instance version, right? So this is exactly what this capability brings to the table. So I'm very excited to see this come in fully fledged, and it should be to the point because IDEM is very cool in the fact that, if the endpoints are open REST compatible, for the most part, it should just be able to detect the new capabilities that come in. But this is obviously all subject to change. But either way, I just thought it would be a cool little video to be able to show that this is how ARIA is going to be filling some of those gaps around consuming cloud native resources, as well as it's got its capability to be agnostic, and all that stuff's not going away. But it just gives you that full power of the cloud resources without compromising on what's been abstracted, right? So while bringing it in to all your policy-based security and lifecycle and management of those resources, especially around lease times and who can provision what, who can manage what, who can deploy what, and just opens up the capabilities so much, which is really exciting to see. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed. Hopefully the video didn't go too that long. Stay safe out there. Until next time, see you, bye.